Cortisol is a hormone, and because it is the hormone that can save your life when something dangerous happens, it is what we call the master hormone, the hormone that takes priority over the other hormones. And what does that insulin do? It captures those sugar molecules and goes and stores them as fat around the body. The fat cells around the waist and the stomach are twice as sensitive to cortisol as the fat cells around the rest of the body. A 2-minute breathing exercise of breathing in for 5 seconds, out for 5 seconds will instantly drop your cortisol levels. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Eat, Burn, Sleep podcast. Today we're going to talk about how you can hack your cortisol levels through dietary changes. We talk about cortisol a lot. It's the stress hormone. And although it is needed for good health, it can be also quite damaging to your health if you have too much of it or if you have it at the wrong time. So let's talk first about what cortisol is. Cortisol is a hormone that is the get-go hormone. So for example, we wake up in the morning, our cortisol levels are higher than in the evening because we need to get up and go, do things. The day is starting, we are active. It is a hormone that gives us the ability to take action. In the evening, you want to have lower cortisol levels, so serotonin, melatonin can kick in and you can have very good sleep. So cortisol is not your enemy, and it is normal to have higher cortisol levels in the morning and for them to drop in the evening. What cortisol is as well is it is a hormone, and because it is the hormone that can save your life when something dangerous happens, it is what we call the master hormone, i.e. the hormone that takes priority over the other hormones. Let me explain. If you are in a dangerous situation and your cortisol levels go up, that's your stress hormone. What that triggers is a release of glycogen, which is sugar stored in your muscles, and it gets released in the blood so you can take physical action, run away from danger to be able to save your skin and be safe. The body will see this response as the priority to keep you safe and alive. So cortisol takes over any other hormone and triggers what we call the hormone cascade. So when cortisol is high, it takes priority over estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, DHEA regulation, thyroid hormones, all of them. Cortisol is needed to save us. For example, if you're crossing the street and there is suddenly a car, you want to be able to accelerate so you don't get hit. And that cortisol spike is a good one. It's saving your life. It's stopping you from being hit by a car. However, having elevated cortisol levels for a continuous amount of time without a break, that can seriously disrupt the hormones because of what I've just explained, the hormone cascade. So you want to be regulating your cortisol levels. And how can you regulate them? Many people know that it is the stress hormone, so they think, oh, I need to be less stressed. It's true. But how do you get less stressed? Because stress is a very subjective thing. I do this, maybe it does nothing to me, and maybe it freaks somebody else. A loud noise or even a work situation. Maybe someone gets excited by a little bit of a challenge at work, and maybe somebody else gets stressed from it. So cortisol and stress is a very subjective thing. You can't say this is stressful and this is not stressful. It depends on the person. So it's what we make of it. And it's what we make of it in our heads. But because our heads are connected to our bodies, it's also what our body makes of it. So I'll give you a very simple example. I'm someone who's very sensitive to noise. But if I lack of sleep, or if it's 2 days before my period, I'll be far more sensitive to noise than if I've slept well and I'm in day 10 of my cycle. This is an example of how the nervous system can perceive things completely differently depending on your own status. So how can you use nutrition to regulate your cortisol? And why do you want to regulate your cortisol? You want to regulate your cortisol levels because impaired cortisol function first can really lower your immune system. That's why when we're stressed or overtired or overworked, we are more prone to infections. The reason for that is when cortisol levels are elevated, it triggers the sympathetic nervous system, which shuts down the parasympathetic nervous system. And the parasympathetic nervous system is responsible for resting, digesting, and immunity. So when you have high cortisol levels for a long period of time, your immune system will be impaired. And what does that mean? It means that not only you're more prone to infections and things like that, but you're also more prone to developing non-communicable diseases, NCDs, which are things like heart attacks, cancer, hormonal issues, all the diseases linked to chronic inflammation. Because chronic inflammation is a dysregulation of the immune system, and cortisol is one of the things that can trigger it. So the Eat, Burn, Sleep lifestyle really aims at regulating cortisol so you don't get into an inflammatory state due to high cortisol levels. So the first thing is cortisol can impact the immune system. Second thing is cortisol freezes the brain. I'll give you a simple example. If your child is taking exams and they get too stressed, they can't think anymore because it shuts down the front cortex. We go into a fight or flight, almost animalistic mode, and we can't use our brain properly. So if your cortisol levels are elevated, you can't think straight. And you're not going to make the right decisions. If you've listened to the podcast that I've recorded with Nick Potter, the osteopath, who works also with Brevin Howard, a hedge fund based in London and I think around the world, he works in regulating cortisol levels in traders because it impacts their decision making and hence the ability for them to make money. So our decision making, our brain, our thoughts, our thought pattern, our rationality is highly impacted in a negative way if we have high cortisol levels because we become fearful. We are in a fear state. So high cortisol impacts the immune system, more vulnerability to communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases. Second thing, it impacts the ability to think, to perform, and to live a happy life because you're stressed. The third thing is it makes you gain weight around the waist particularly. So if your cortisol levels are elevated, you will be inflamed. That can lead to water retention. So you notice that you have water weight. How do you know you have water weight? It's, for example, one day you're able to remove a ring and the next day you're not able to remove it. That is a sign when you're not able to remove that ring that you might be carrying water, and that one of the causes can be stress. That is a sign of inflammation. So cortisol can lead to water retention and poor lymphatic drainage. So you can carry extra water weight, but you can also carry more fat because when cortisol is elevated, as I was saying, it releases the glycogen, the sugar that's stored in your muscles. That sugar goes into your blood. If when you get that stress response, you don't go for a jog or you're not running away from a predator and you're just sat actually in front of your computer, let's say you get an email that stresses you, you stop breathing, your cortisol levels go up, blood sugar levels go up, the pancreas releases insulin to bring blood sugar in homeostasis within a range, within a healthy range. And what does that insulin do? It actually literally captures those sugar molecules and goes and stores them as fat around the body. And the cells, the fat cells around the waist and the stomach are twice as sensitive to cortisol as the fat cells around the rest of the body. That's why some people can get a bit of a belly when they are stressed, particularly perimenopausal women and menopausal women, because from the moment you hit perimenopause, you get a little bit of insulin resistance, which means that your blood sugar levels are more elevated, and that's why you might notice that you're getting belly fat. So if you add on top of that more cortisol, you're getting even more belly fat, and you can see it in the streets. You can see when you look at young girls, they will have a small waist, and if you look at women who are in their 60s, they have a thicker waist. It's what I'm describing. Perimenopause, menopause can lead to higher blood sugar levels and can also lead to higher cortisol levels and hence more fat around the waist. And the reason why it can lead to more cortisol levels is because during perimenopause, progesterone drops, estrogen as well, but progesterone is the feel-good hormone. That's why many perimenopausal women, they kind of feel stressed, or there are things that they felt they could deal with in the past, but they no longer are able to cope due to the drop in progesterone, but also drop in testosterone. And we've covered the testosterone part actually in that podcast with Nick Potter, so I invite you to go and listen to it after this. So, to summarize, cortisol affects your immune system health, your brain, your weight, all your hormones, because of the hormone cascade. So it can lead to hormone dysregulation. So someone with high cortisol levels will find that all the hormones get dysregulated, and it can lead to various issues. So you can have, imbalanced hormones due to higher cortisol levels. All of this brings me to the fact that it's super important to regulate cortisol. To have the right amount of cortisol in the morning, have it drop in the evening, and have a normal, healthy cortisol response. And there are many things to regulate cortisol. The first and most important is sleep. You want to get your sleep during the healthy hours between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m. And how do you get better sleep? I've spoken about this in the podcast about how to lose weight by sleeping well. So I invite you to listen to that podcast, that solo podcast that dives into the science of sleeping better, which helps you regulate cortisol levels. The second thing is you want to be watching your breath. Don't hold your breath. Make sure you breathe regularly and well. And maybe that means that you stop during the day to just do a little breathing exercise. A 2-minute breathing exercise of breathing in for 5 seconds, out for 5 seconds, again in for 5 seconds, out for 5 seconds. This will, in 2 minutes, instantly drop your cortisol levels. Or you can do another one, which is breathe in for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Hold the breath for 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Exhale for 4. And do it again. And that will instantly reduce your cortisol levels. Then you want to be mindful of your exercise. You need movement and anti-inflammatory movement. And I share all of that on the platform because some forms of exercise can be super inflammatory. And on the Eat, Burn, Slap platform, I go through the science of it. There's a whole masterclass on movement. And of course, I share all the anti-inflammatory movement videos. And last but not least is dietary changes. There's no amount of breathing and thinking positively and trying to stress yourself that's going to help you regulate your cortisol optimally if you eat a bad diet. Why? Because 60% of neurotransmitters in adults and about 80% in children, serotonin, the happy hormone, melatonin, the sleep hormone, dopamine, the reward hormone, and GABA are located in the gut. So the gut bacteria and blood sugar regulation play a huge role in cortisol regulation. So cortisol brings blood sugar instability, but having blood sugar levels that are not regular will elevate cortisol levels too. So there is a binary relationship between blood sugar levels and cortisol levels. There is a relationship between gut bacteria and cortisol regulation. And finally, there is a relationship between liver health and cortisol regulation. Why? Because the liver performs over 500 functions, one of them being hormone homeostasis, which is hormonal balancing. So if your liver detoxification pathways are not optimal, your cortisol levels might be more elevated because your liver is not regulating your hormones as well as it should. And my method actually is very much based on all these principles. So seamlessly with the meal plan that I share on the platform, and obviously I'm not going to go through all of that now because otherwise we're here for 5 hours, the food timing is there to impact your gut bacteria in a positive manner, to optimize serotonin production, melatonin production, and hence regulate cortisol levels. The Eat, Burn, Sleep lifestyle as it is supports gut health and liver health, which then impacts your cortisol regulation. And most importantly, the way I have structured the meals, the carbohydrates, protein, fat composition of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and it's not the same for the three of them, is there to optimize your cortisol release. The fact that we are having good carbs at a certain time of the day to optimize sleep, to optimize serotonin, is there to help you with your cortisol regulation. The fact that I'm completely against diets, and in favor of a lifestyle that doesn't stop you from living your life in a normal manner, is for people to not have elevated cortisol because they have jumped on a healthier lifestyle. So what I mean by that is you're allowed to go to restaurants. I want you to mingle with friends. I want you to continue having dinners out, because when we are removed from social situations as humans because we can't survive with the group, our cortisol levels are higher. It has been shown, for example, that if you eat a meal on your own and you eat the exact same meal with people, your blood sugar levels don't go up as much when you are eating in company. And the word company comes from the Latin come with pan bread. A companion is someone with whom you break the bread. We are meant to eat with others. So when I see these influencers who go on a super strict diet and cut themselves out from social interactions and meeting friends and eating in company, I know they are not being optimal with their health, because we are social beings, and when we are isolated, when we don't see people, our cortisol levels go up. So keep all of this in mind. Whenever you go out, don't see it as something that's going to stop you reaching your health goals. See the positive of it. Think, oh my God, that's amazing. I'm going to be eating in company with friends, and that reduces my cortisol levels. That reduces the impact on my blood sugar levels of the food. I'm just going to follow the eating out guidance that Yalda gives me so I can get the upside of everything. First, I don't have to cook the meal. A chef has done it for me in a restaurant. It doesn't have to be perfect, because the lifestyle is not about perfection. It's about progress and damage limitation. And 3, I'm getting social interactions, which are the number one factor for longevity and help me reduce my cortisol levels. So all of this to say that if you look at health from a single angle and you become too restrictive, that in itself is stressful. So just move away from all these scaremongering social media accounts, all these scaremongering podcasts. Stop listening to them. They're bad for you. They increase your cortisol levels. Be chilled. Enjoy your friends. Be sensible with it. Follow the Eat, Burn, Sleep anti-inflammatory lifestyle in a light manner without stressing too much about it. The key to health is to go for all the low-hanging fruits, all the easy choices. If you are working anyway, why would you go and grab something junky? You might as well just eat something healthy that you have prepared in your little lunchbox, or even you can go and grab healthier choices, even if they're not perfect. Reserve the treats for when you truly enjoy them so you do not feel deprived. Look at regulating your stress level through your breath, through your thoughts. A gratitude prayer instantly improves our microbiome because it releases serotonin instantly. Think how lucky you are, how wonderful your job is, how lucky you are to do whatever you're doing in your life. If you're a mom and you're super stressed and the kids, you have to pack just think, I'm so lucky I have children and they're healthy, touch wood. I'm blessed. Oh, I'm lucky I have the time to educate myself on health. I'm lucky I have friends. I'm lucky I have a family. I'm lucky the sun is shining today. I'm lucky I have a warm home and a comfortable bed to sleep in. Whatever it is you want to look at, start looking at life in pink. Imagine that you're wearing pink tinted glasses because that's going to keep you healthier and make you live longer and reduce your cortisol levels. The next thing is you want to get your sleep. So read a real book in the evening. Don't spend too much time on your screens. And watch your diet. Think about regulating your blood sugars. Think about improving your gut microbiota. Think about doing the right kind of movement to support your gut, to support your spine health. Listen to the podcast with Nick Potter on this, and to support your immune system health. I hope you find this helpful. Keep smiling. And if you want to learn more about my method, go on eatburnsleep.com. We have a lot of free content. There are a lot of free articles to read, a lot of free videos to watch, and you can start your journey there with us. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. For those of you who are not members of the platform yet, we have a discount code for all our podcast listeners. You can get 15% off the memberships. Just enter the code podcast15 at checkout. And make sure to read all the articles and all the free content we have on eatburnsleep.com to keep you motivated and informed and educated about living an anti-inflammatory lifestyle.